perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small nut, a medium, let us escape from this tedium.
Hello, my name is Stan. Welcome back to Paranormal Perspectives. I have my wonderful co-host Christine,
Hi.
our lovely friend Milan, much like myself, and we also have with us Scotty, all the way from, is it New Mexico, is that right?
Albuquerque, New Mexico, yes.
Albuquerque, New Mexico. Thank you for being with us tonight. It means a lot that you're here because, this is going to be an interesting conversation. It's kind of like really about messages from the beyond, I suppose. So I still to this day can't explain how it works, how people can kind of communicate cross-dimensionally, how consciousness exists outside the body and so on, though. There's so many things that cause us to question, like, what are we really? What happens after we pass over and such? So I'm just going to start the conversation, if that's all right, Scotty. It would be good just to know simply like who you are, what you do. Just tell us a bit about yourself. What excites you?
39 years old. Been out in New Mexico.
You do, Natch.
7 years. This December will be 7 years. I just love the out here. The weather is wonderful. We have all kinds of wonderful weather. Like the one thing people say the most out here is wait 5 minutes and it'll change. So if it's too cold, wait 5 minutes, it'll warm up. I just love exploring out here, and I'm a walker. And people are like, oh, like Walking Dead. I'm like, not quite, but I love to walk around. I love the great outdoors. I can't hike because I'm out of shape, but walking, I love walking around this city. Everything has a sidewalk and meeting new people. Like I constantly meet new people. And to me, it's always interesting to hear different things that happen to different people, you know? So like I work in retail where I'm constantly meeting different people, different age groups, different ethnicities, you know. We do have in Albuquerque, we do have a very high Spanish population, but we also have a mixture of other people, like not just Mexico Spanish. I had a driver the other day from Cuba, another one the other day from Nairobi. Like we get all kinds of people out here, and it's a melting pot. Like people are like, oh, Albuquerque's great. I'm like, it is. It's the land of enchantment.
That sounds wonderful. Much like my home, I'm from Oxford myself, and the stereotype of Oxford is like a particular kind of characteristic, that quintessential British, representation. But in reality, all these years growing up here, it's like, again, like you described, like a melting pot of different cultures, really. Like, there's a lot of Polish who kind of, obviously part of my background, my family's Polish, and a lot of Italians there, like specifically like my background, family background is Sardinian too, and people all the way from India as well. Like this is such a melting pot of different cultures, and like you'll head down one street and there'll be like Indian food, like the next street there'll be Chinese food, and then there'll be like African, like North African kind of food, and like Ghanaian specifically as well.
Yeah, very diverse.
It's so exciting being down here. Like I said, like Oxford isn't the way it's made to seem. Like all around the world, it's actually very different when you're actually here. It's just like everything and anything under the sun being here. So I can relate to that a lot, and I'm really glad to hear that you're a walker too. I love walking.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's awesome. So so you messaged me a few days ago about your experience. So I kind of deliberately almost don't know much about you. I'm kind of here just as a fresh viewer, really, just much like our audience is, really. So I'm really interested to hear about your experience, really. So if you don't mind just telling it in your own words, and we might have a few questions about it.
Yeah. So before I moved to New Mexico, I was living in New Jersey, and I've lived there all my life. And in 2007, I had 8 roommates in a house. We were in a 3-bedroom house, and there was 2 girls and 6 guys, or 5 guys and 1 mom. And we all very diverse as well. We had 1 guy who played drums, 1 guy who played guitars. But the one thing that we always did on Friday nights, or Thursday nights at the time, was watch Ghost Hunters. And I mean, it was just an amazing show. Like, I didn't really, to me, the paranormal was like, oh yeah, it exists, and they're probably doing something behind the camera. But then when I started to watch the show, I'm like, oh, okay. They would play back an EVP, and I'm just like, all right, wow, that was kind of cool, So there was, in probably I would say early February, end of January, I went out and was like, hey, I said to the girl I was dating at the time, I'm going to buy a voice recorder. And she goes, what for? I said, well, I don't know. We've been watching, ghost hunters for like forever. Why not see if I can capture anything in the house we were staying in? Now, the house we'd stayed in was owned by two brothers. They were the landlords. And we had a 6-month lease with them. So we signed the lease in December. We had the house to ourselves till June. So in probably like May, probably around this time, around like April, May-ish, I was like, hey, what's everybody doing Thursday night? And they're like, well, we're going to watch Ghost Hunters, but this weekend, a lot of us are going out because it's in the States, spring break usually is in May or April. So a lot of them had left. So at the time, that Saturday night, it was me, the girl I was dating, and one other roommate, and he lived in the basement. So there was just three of us at the house, and I was watching TV, and the girl I was dating went to bed early, and I'm like, hey, I'll be in bed in a couple hours. So around 1 o'clock, I climbed to bed. I took the voice recorder out, and I'm like, I'm going to put this across the room so it doesn't pick up snoring, because I'm like, these things are super sensitive. So at the time, the way our room was set up was the bed was here, across the way was the dresser. So across the room was the dresser. I put it up and hit record. So I let it record all night while I slept. The next morning, it was just me, her, and the roommate at like 8 in the morning. I'm listening to it back on headphones, and I just hear, all right. I'm like, what was that? So then I cranked up the volume. All right. I'm like, what on earth is that? 3 or 4 times, could not distinguish it. I took the headphone jack from a computer speaker, plugged it directly into the voice recorder, cranked it up, and I hear clear as a bell, good night, in a woman's voice. I'm like, no. And the crazy part is, like 3 seconds later, you hear the girl I'm dating say, good night, babe. And I'm like, but that wasn't my voice. It was a woman. It was an older woman's voice that said good night. At maybe an hour later, all my roommates started coming home from being out and about that weekend. I'm like, guys, come here. So all 8 of us were around the computer speaker, and I play it back, and you hear a woman's voice, good night, perfect cadence and everything. I'm like, they're like, who is that? I said, I don't know. At the time, it was just me, the girl I was dating, and our roommate, Tony, who lived in the basement. And they're like, there was no other women here? I'm like, no other women's here. So we call up our landlords, and we're like, hey, there's something happening in this apartment. And they're like, what do you mean? I said, I got told good night by a woman. And he goes, it was probably one of the roommates. I said, no, nobody was here. So they come over, and I have them sit down in front of the computer, and just like Jason and Grant, plugged in the voice recorder, hit play, and you hear the woman's voice, good night. And he goes, play that back. Rewound it, played it back. The other brother goes, that sounds familiar. One more time. So I played it again. And he goes, that's my grandmother. I'm like, what do you mean your grandmother? He goes, where did you record this at? And I told him upstairs on the second floor in the back bedroom. And he goes, well, this was my grandparents' house before we took it over. That's her saying goodnight to you. And I'm like, and then a couple of seconds later in the clip, you hear my girl that I was dating go, good night, babe. And he goes, who was that? I said, that was her. And he goes, those are 2 different voices. And I said, I have no clue. So come to find out that it was his grandmother, and his mom came over later on that day. I played for her, and she goes, yeah, she used to tell the boys when they stayed here, good night before bed. And I captured it on the voice recording, and I was just blown away, because that was the first time I ever, after watching Ghost Hunters, first time I ever captured anything anywhere. I'm just like, wow, that really just happened. And I have no clue where the voice recorder is to this day. If I could find it, I would love to, replay it and hear it. but that was 2007 and it's now 2025. But I was just like, wow. And since then, I've tried to do other stuff with phone, with other digital recordings. Nothing as clear as that was back in 2007.
That's incredible. So, did you get any repeats of those instances? Like around that time, did you hear like another like good night?
No, it was one kind of fluid cadence. Good night, like it went up an
It's like a
octave.
one-off.
Went,
Yeah,
yeah,
that is fascinating.
and it was unbelievable. Like just so clear. Like I didn't have to enhance it. I just upped the volume, and it just clear as a bell. Good night.
So, would you say like before you had this experience, like so? I guess you watched that kind of that show, like you would have some sort of interest there. But were you like a believer then? And this kind of enhanced that there. Were you kind of like skeptical
Yeah.
to an extent?
I was a little bit skeptical because prior to watching the show, but then watching the show for so much, I was just like, all right, I guess it could happen. But then when I captured that actual EVP, I was like, yeah, there's the fact that she had been dead for 20 years and was saying goodnight on an EVP across the room, like probably, I'm trying to think conversion wise, but like maybe 30 feet American. So I don't know what that is in meters, but that's how far away it was from me.
Yeah.
And you could hear the girl I was dating, you could hear her say, "Good night, babe," thinking I was the one who said it to her. She wasn't aware of it. And I asked her, and I said, "Did you say goodnight to me in the middle of the night?" And she goes, "Yeah. Didn't you say, like, I felt you crawl in the bed, but I didn't hear anything." Like, she didn't hear the goodnight. She just felt me crawl in the bed and responded to the EVP that neither one of us heard with our own ears. Like, it was just unbelievable how it was like correlated perfectly, you know?
I get this. I find them fascinating. Well, I want to ask you, thinking back to it, can you remember if when you heard it, it seemed as though the voice was far away? By that I mean, nowadays, we would talk into recording device. We've got them on here. I've heard a really clear EVP, but it sounded like it was ever so clear, but it sounded like it was a long way off. Is that what happened?
When I played it back before I upped the volume, it literally sounded like almost like she picked it up and said into it, "Good night." So it was almost like she knew that, like the grandmother knew that it was sitting on the dresser and was saying goodnight to her grandsons in that bedroom.
I think the thing we have a problem with EVPs is very often we hear what we want to hear, or we hear what we're told we're going to hear. But when you get something like this, which is completely random, you've got to ask yourself what the hell's going on there, because you weren't expecting it for a start. You hadn't been primed for it, and certainly the one we got in here was so clear. Was "Hello, darling," and it was like, who the hell is that? And again, it was a bunch of women that was in the room, and it was a man's voice. So it couldn't have, and we tried to debunk it, but we couldn't. And it was just like it dropped in and dropped out again. So I absolutely get that. I find them fascinating. And I was saying to you earlier, I've got somebody that contributed to my book. Now, I think his mum died I can't remember 7 years earlier anyway, and he was still living with his dad when this occurred, and he bought his dad a phone, and the day before, and the phone rang, and when his dad sort of answered it, it was his mother talking, saying, Andre, can you hear me? And she'd been dead for about 6 years. And he said the same as you. If he hadn't heard it himself, he would not have believed it. And it's one of those things, I mean, everything is telling you that shouldn't happen. But, honest people, ordinary people, it happens to them. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when the the two brothers had told me that their grandmother passed away 20 years prior to that, and they recognized her voice in me. Like, I didn't tell them anything. I just said, hey, I caught something. Come take a listen. I didn't say it was a woman's voice, nothing. Because after watching Ghost Hunters, I know that, hey, if you give them ideas, that's who they're thinking it's going to be, and they kind of have all that built in their head. So when I said to them, hey, I just have a recording, I want you guys to hear it, I played it for them 3 times, and the one brother was kind of like, it almost like when you say treat to a dog, it's like the ears perked up. He was like, wait, that sounds familiar. Like, I recognize that voice. And so when I played it back, and he goes, that's our grandmother. She owned this. He bought the house. I don't know when he bought the house, but they both co-owned it. And their grandmother, that's the room that they stayed in when their grandmother had owned it, when they were kids.
Yeah.
There you have it. And it was the same with me. When I played it to somebody, they said, that's X. I went, I thought that, but I didn't want to say that to you. And we hadn't seen X for about 7 years. So we did a bit of digging, and guess what? We found out that X was dead. And
wow.
There's his voice on the EVP sort of thing. You've got to ask yourself, how does that happen? But it's
for sure
when it does, because it makes
yeah.
Yes, when you you start to have the experiences in person as well, that's when it gets like really quite shocking. So I know if just to add to your story, Scotty, because I know that you kind of essentially recorded it, you kind of experienced it not firsthand, but sort of secondhand through the recording. But obviously, that's evidence. That's something you can play to anybody repeatedly. It's there. It's empirical, really.
Yeah.
Because years ago when I lived in Oxford, like it was me, my mum, my sister, all growing up in this house. And yeah, I was woken up about 3 o'clock in the morning by this party that I thought was happening next door, and I was a bit annoyed really because I wanted to sleep. I had school the next day, and kind of opened the window thinking, oh, maybe it's next door, maybe they're just playing loud music, and I could hear like laughing and shouting and just conversation, and like it's really bizarre. Then it got louder and louder. Then I realised actually it was happening inside my room. And of course, everybody was asleep. It was the middle of the night. Like I knew for definite that I wasn't hallucinating. I was fully kind of compos mentis, so focused, all there.
Right.
And I followed it to the center of my room, and I could hear it. Like it's about as loud as I'm speaking now. Really, like it's quite audible. And I thought, yeah, maybe I'm just imagining it though. Maybe maybe I want to hear it, or I don't know why I would want to, but yeah, this kept happening repeatedly for about a few months. Like almost every night I'd hear like all this music, and it sounded different every night, like a different kind of laughter, different noises, not like it was a repeated sound. Then I told my sister about it a few nights later, and the weirdest thing was she could hear it, and it was also coming from her room. Wow. So eventually I spoke to my mum a few nights later, said like, okay, like me and my sister have had no sleep for about 2 or 3 weeks now. We really want to sleep though, but this party won't stop.
Yeah.
Like he said to her, like, can you hear it? She said no. It's weird that both me and my sister heard it, but my mum didn't, and we're in the same house, the same location. Like, there may be a natural explanation for it, though. Like talk about the concept of ghosts, for example. Like, sometimes noises and events can be repeated and stored essentially through brickwork, through resonant frequencies, like energies that are around.
Right.
It could be that, or it could be a spiritual kind of thing. But still, to this day, like complete mystery. It's like one of the most weirdest things I've ever heard, and I'm really annoyed that I could never record it though. But it's when you share experiences with other people as well, that's like also about it's quite eerie, really. Like I'd love to know what it was to this day. Like I'm pretty sure our next door neighbour wasn't having a party. They were quite, no offense to them, they're quite boring, really. That they didn't really do anything. They just read, they read books all the time. I love reading books, but they didn't play music.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't do anything really. Well, so yeah, like unexplained.
Yeah.
I don't know yet.
Oh yeah. I even asked my roommate who lived in the basement. I said, "Were you awake at that hour?" He goes, "I went to bed early because I had a long day, so I went to bed early." But he was in bed by 9:30, 10 o'clock. So he was in bed long before I even thought, "Hey, I'm going to set the recorder up." So he didn't hear a thing. But when I played that back, and they all were like, "There's a woman that said goodnight to you," and I'm like, "I guess," and like. The craziest part is when the one brother knew that it was his grandmother, and when I told him what room it was, Immediately he was like, yeah, that's where we stayed when our grandmother was alive and we were kids. So like the correlation there of me putting on, because we didn't bring our own furniture, like they furnished the whole place, we just were renting from it. The fact that I put it on the dresser in that room and he knew exactly what, like when I told him what room, he knew exactly. It's almost like it brought back memories of when he was a kid. Hey, that's the room I slept in. That's the room my grandmother used to say goodnight to us, you know?
I would be interested to find out, have you had other experiences of not anything like that happening at all?
Since then, once in a while, I've never captured anything, but there's been times where I'll hear somebody either say my name or mention something I just did. Like there's been a few times out here in New Mexico where I've had some I thought I've heard somebody go Scotty, but it's like a quick one. It's like Scotty. I'm like, what?
Okay, well,
But I'm like,
don't
it's
disregard that at all, because that's something else that's quite common, that people get their or hear their names being called. But I'm interested in why you heard that on that night. I wonder, obviously you can't tell now, it's years later, whether that was some significant date, like to the brothers.
yeah.
Because very often we find that phenomena occurs around anniversaries, or significant birthdays and things like that. Yeah, the Scotty, hearing your name being called, that's quite common. I was in the bath once, and I knew that I was in the flat on my own, and all of a sudden I heard Christine, because most people call me Chris, but it was Christine, and I thought, shit, there's somebody in my house, and I'm in the house naked and alone, and somebody's in my house, and I knew it was a male. So I wonder what's happening. Can spirit, oh God, I know what I want to say. Can spirit use technology to communicate with us? I think they can. I absolutely
True.
think they can.
I think absolutely they can.
Yeah.
Because there's been times where I'll do something and like I'll hear something of what I just did. Like it's almost like the spirits know what I just did and they're recalling it back to me. Or they'll sit, like I'll be thinking of something, and as I'm thinking of it, I'll hear it audibly in the distance. I'm like, I was just thinking that, like for instance, about 5 years ago out here, I was sitting in a Starbucks, and they're getting ready to close, and I knew one of the guys there, and he goes, "You can just hang out, whatever." So I'm sitting there hanging out. I go and get in my car, and right as I get in my car, audibly I hear trash can, and I'm like, trash can? What the? But right before I got in my car, the cup that I had finished, I had just thrown in the trash can before I got into my car. So I was just like, what does trash can have to do with anything? But it was like, it wasn't like a distinguished, like, oh, I know that's a guy, that's a girl. It was almost like a quick little quip, trash can. I'm like, what? What trash can? And I'm looking around. I'm thinking like my phone sits up. My phone's in my pocket, off, because I usually when I would go to Starbucks, I turn my phone off and just kind of shut out the world. But like I'm like my phone's off in my pocket, but clearly I just heard go trash can. I'm like, what on earth? And like windows are up, car's not even on yet. Haven't even put the key in the ignition, but it was just clear as a bell. Like that was 5 years ago. I've been out here 6, but like I'm like, what on earth? But then there's other times where I'll think I see something out of the corner of my eye, and there's nothing there. Like I'll catch a glimpse of something. I'm just like the other day, okay, so recently, this year in January, mid-January, I'm sitting in my apartment that I'm in now, and I'm on the 3rd floor. But out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody on my balcony wave their hand in front of the door. And I'm like, who was that? Like, bizarre. I'm like, I'm on the 3rd floor. There's no way there's somebody out there on my balcony. My roommate wasn't home. It was just me home by myself. But like, I'm like, it's 7:30 at night. Who is on my balcony with their hand, like waving in my apartment? And I'm like, it's not my reflection because I'm too far away. Like, I'll show you how far away the door is. Like, that's like 50 feet. So like, there's no way I can cause a reflection in this sliding glass door. But it just saw the hand just pop right past the door. I'm like, who's out there?
Right, I would.
Yeah, so
I would absolutely.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Christine. Go.
Oh, sorry. Talking over.
I'm getting excited now.
Yeah, I would absolutely say that seeing people out your peripheral vision is really normal. Have you considered that you might have some psychic ability?
I've never thought of it that way, but
The reason I'm asking, so okay, you've had a couple of auditory things apart from the first one you told us about. You've heard your name being called, for instance. You've heard other things, and you've seen things out of your peripheral. Many moons ago, when I was just a young girl of 30 or something, I started.
You still are young, Christine.
No, I know, darling. You can come back anytime you want. But yeah, I started to get things on my peripheral vision. So if I was in a certain place, I would, like I'm looking at you. It didn't happen all the time, and it frightened me because I didn't know what it was. And then years later, all these years later, talking to people, it's very common for people that's starting to develop their psychic ability, and it's almost like the spirit world or the psychic world is knocking and saying, hello, we're over here. I just wondered if that's something you've considered, that you have a psychic ability and it's starting to manifest itself.
Yeah, I mean, I've never really looked into it, never thought of it, but like, I mean, and it's not always my name that I hear sometimes. It's like I've heard a few times over the past several years, I've heard somebody go, over there. I'm like, over where? And like, I'm a practical joker, so I'm thinking next thing I'm going to hear is somebody go, it's under there. And I'm going to go, underwear. Oh, like, that's what I'm thinking in my head. But like, I'll hear somebody just randomly, over there. Like, I'm looking around, like, trying to figure out who said that and where they're trying to get me to look, because everyday basis, I see a slew of people every day with work. So I'm like, who on earth just said that? Or who am I looking for,
It's rather. I was in this room one night with 3 ladies, and 2 of them heard women talking in my kitchen. I couldn't hear a thing. How weird is that? We were sat here, and they both said, can you hear that? And they said it's like women chattering. I couldn't hear it. I think it's a development of your psychic abilities that you're able to hear things. I really do. Not everybody hears things like that. Don't tell your doctor, for God's sake, because they'll tell you, you need to see a shrink or something, and it's not true.
Well, yeah.
I think
they're trained in the known world. It's also worth considering as well. I mean, to me, I've experienced similar things. If it reassures you, I've experienced similar things. Like, I consider myself a medium now, and it took me a long time to accept what I am anyway. It doesn't mean that you are anyway. It's not necessarily the case though, but I did consider for a while it could be a psychological thing as well, because consciousness in itself, like we talk about, like, the forefront of the mind, the one that you deal with in the everyday. There's the subconscious, dealing with the various runnings in the background. It could be like threat detection, for example. I don't know if you find that if you go to a party, for example, like apparently that's the most strain you can put the human brain under, because it's constantly looking for eyes, basically, like just inbuilt into us to look out for threats, for things like that. And you'll find yourself getting more exhausted, but you're not consciously doing that, but it's doing that on its own, basically. So sometimes I thought myself, when I've heard certain voices and seen certain things, is it just my threat detection system going off, basically? Is it misperceiving certain things? Yeah, but also there's the other side of things, like what is reality in itself? We live in this one reality. Could it be the crossing of 2 different boundaries at that moment in time? over time, I've learned to accept it. I mean, I didn't want to believe it for a long time because I didn't like the idea of believing these things, because I don't want anybody to make fun of me, quite frankly. Like, I used to be bullied a lot at school. I didn't want to let them know that I could see ghosts. It took a long time to accept that as well. And, part of loving yourself is learning to accept yourself and accept the things that you've been through there. And, I myself, like I said, I've heard voices, like before a major accident that I had a few years ago. I heard someone say in my right ear, "You shouldn't be here." And then it happened. I didn't know that was going to happen, of course, before the accident happened, though. But yeah, that happened, and then everything, all the bad stuff happened. There's been times when I remember specifically, I was out in my partying days, which were a long time ago, back out in Oxford. I was on my way back after catching a train. It was quite dark, and there's like a bridge I had to cross, and there wasn't any lighting there, so it was quite hidden. Someone was approaching me on the other side of the bridge. Naturally, you'd feel a bit unsafe there because it's dark, you can't see enough. Like, naturally, your threat detection system kind of activates. But I had a gut feeling that, okay, no, actually something is really, really wrong here. And as I approached this person, like, he looked friendly enough. He's well dressed chap, as to say,
Right.
and wearing his jacket and all that. But he had like a plastic bag with him. I could see it from a distance, and I thought, okay, well, maybe he's fine. He seems all right, though. But my gut kept telling me, and a voice in my head kept telling me, warning, be careful, be careful. Like, I kept hearing the word sharp, sharp, sharp. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to listen to it this time because it's berating me enough, that I must listen to it. So as I approached him, I could see what was the end of a blade just sticking through the plastic bag. It was just lit up enough from the moonlight for me to see. Wow. I was already prepared.
Yeah.
So as I approached him, I already had my leg. I wouldn't recommend anyone do this. I had my leg like ready to kick out, basically to push him backwards. So I sort of not to kick him anyway, but I kind of used my leg to push him backwards, though, so he couldn't get anywhere near me. So because he was ready to do something, and then it kind of shocked him because he wasn't expecting me to do anything, and then I just ran, run like anything. You'd be amazed how fast I can run when I'm scared. But I've done that a lot.
Yeah,
but it's amazing that detection system. Was that my brain telling me something was coming, or was that my instinct, though? But I've learned now over time, these things happen more and more strongly before big things happen. I've learned to listen to it, and it's literally saved my life quite a few times, actually. So
you see,
there's something going on there that, whether it's like perception of reality or you're receiving additional data from somewhere.
I think,
so, yes, it's fascinating.
I think it's your psychic ability. I believe everybody's psychic. Everybody has a psychic ability, and it's greater or lesser in some people. And sometimes it starts to get opened up. Now, what you were feeling, for me, okay, all of what you've said, but I also think, Kieran, that somehow your spirit guide, is saying, beware, beware. So you're feeling that. And you, Scotty, you're as psychic as anybody. You just haven't opened it up yet. Are you with me? You might not practice you might not practice anything, like sitting in a circle or anything. But I believe everybody has that. Have you ever thought of somebody and then the phone rings and it's them on the other end of the phone? Has that ever happened to you?
Not the phone ringing, but I've had times where I've been thinking about somebody and somebody will mention their name.
Right, okay.
Like, there'll be times, like, I'll be thinking about somebody, and like, oh, I haven't talked to that person in a while. And like somebody who I'm friends, who's mutual friends, will be like, hey, did you hear about this person? I'm like,
I was just thinking about them today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's happening there is something that we have very little understanding of, and mediums can access that psychic ability. And, you might want to consider looking at developing that if you've heard things and you've seen things out your peripheral. Now, the thing is with seeing things out your peripheral, if you turn around, it wouldn't be there. It's, oh God, they allow us to see bits of them. Because if you see somebody, like a dead person in front of you, you're going to be shocked, aren't you?
Right.
Yeah. But as you start to develop, your awareness becomes greater and greater. And coming back to you, Stan, that I think a lot of what you felt on that bridge that night was your psychic ability picking up his vibration, which was already, prepared to, do you some harm. Now you're coming towards him, you're open. The more open you are, you're sensing that ahead of time. And it's as he comes into your auric space, you felt it. Thank goodness you did.
Yeah. It's surprising how normal the paranormal is, really, because
it's not.
We use these things and define them as. I mean, if it is that, Scotty, anyway, obviously, I don't want to tell you what to think, anyway. So it's entirely up to you what you believe. But if it is, considered a paranormal thing, like more and more people seem to experience these things, and through this podcast, I've spoken to people of all sorts of different backgrounds, like I say, like actors, obviously mediums, office workers. I even spoke to like another graphic designer like myself. Like positive media, social media influencer as well. Like, it's so common that it makes me question, like, is this really parallel to the normal, as in paranormal? Is this just another function that we have yet to understand? So
yes,
and I love the fact,
yes,
that's exactly, so the more that we talk about these things, like, we realize that it's just another function, it's just another natural thing. Like, we're told we have 5 senses, we could have an additional 6th or 7th or 8th. I mean, who knows? But
right,
our understanding is so limited right now, and we can't always say that we know. We can't say we know everything, and we know exactly where the boundaries are. And beyond those boundaries is what's called the paranormal, as in like the world that we don't understand. The moment we stop, treating the paranormal like we have done previously, like it's a big no-no or something to be scared of or hush and whatever, you then realize actually, like, everybody can do these things. Like, I personally believe, again, don't let me influence you, it's just my opinion, but I believe that everybody has the ability to do these things. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're religious, non-religious, whether you're atheist, whether you're just a spiritual person, whatever your interpretation is of the world around you. I do believe that people can switch these on as and when they need to, really. Like, it's just an ability that we have, just like the ability we have to see, to taste, to smell, to hear, and so on. It's just one of those things. And I've always been kind of annoyed at myself, I suppose, in my early years, where I began to experience these things. I deliberately ignored it because I didn't want that judgment from my kind of social group, really. But those tools could have helped me, a lot earlier on in my life, really, and made me realize actually I'm not some sort of weirdo. Well, to be fair, I'm a bit of weirdo anyway, though, but weirdo in the normal sense.
Yeah.
The earlier you accept it, the more you accept yourself, really. So yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
There's been times where I've had stuff happen, and have watched Ghost Hunters, Ghost Adventures, a lot of the shows, I'm like, oh, I'm going to try and debunk it. But then the times that I can't debunk it, I'm like, how did that happen? And it makes me think. Like, for instance, I moved the apartment I'm in now, me and my roommate moved in here in November. But like around Christmas time, like right before New Year's, in my room, I'm sitting there in my room just hanging out, and I had music on. I turned off the music. Right as I turned off the music, one of my shirts in my closet falls off the hanger onto the floor. And I'm like, looking at it, I'm like, what the heck just happened? And like, it's daytime. It's like 2 PM. And I'm like, what the heck was that? So I go over and I try as best as I can to debunk it. And I put the shirt back on the hanger, and I'm pulling with some strength, trying to get it to fall again. And I couldn't. I'm just like, how did that happen? Like what Christine was saying earlier, sometimes they want you to notice, but when you look and you try to recreate it, then it's not going to happen. But I tried to recreate it, and I'm like, this is not, and I'm pulling with my strength on the hanger. Eventually the hanger broke, but I'm like, all right, let's put another hanger and see what happens. So I put it on another hanger, and it stayed. Put the music back on, turn the music off. I'm like, all right, let's try recreate this scenario that just happened. And it wouldn't happen. I'm like, what was that? Like, it was unexplainable. And when people are like, oh, it's paranormal. Yeah, it's paranormal, but it's also unexplainable. Like, I've no clue why the shirt just fell. I mean, like, it wasn't like it was a heavy sweater or a heavy coat. It just fell straight to and like almost like somebody reached over, grabbed it, and pulled it with their strength off of the hanger. But I tried to pull off the hanger myself, and nothing. I'm just like, what?
But you see, what it did do is make you stop and go, what the hell was that? right, I'm gonna debunk that. You can't debunk it. So you're left,
No.
and here you are telling us about it. What that was about, I believe, was attracting your attention. They don't do it all the time. You get little bits and you think, and it starts to add up. You start to think,
Yeah.
well, that happened, can't explain that. Because you know it within yourself whether you're making these things up. When you know that you're not, I say it's like putting stuff in my evidence bag. That's another bit of evidence. That's another bit of evidence. And this is my understanding. The spirit world want people to be open to their existence. Yeah. Because we can learn so much from the spirit world. And I think they want as many people as they can to wake up and embrace this knowledge that there is something other than this, just this material world. And I think that you've been sort of like poked, if you want. We're here.
Yeah.
It's up to you and what you do with that. You might say, no, it's not for me. Other people, I knew a guy that had a really strange experience. He always used to turn left on his way to work on the bike. And he was being freaked out by things that he was seeing. And he was on his bike this morning. He said, don't turn right or left, whatever it was. But he thought, bugger off. I'm going to do it. And he went around the corner and he had an accident. And he said, I told it then, just leave me alone. And it did. They will poke you. But if you're open to working with spirit, they will keep poking you gently until you go, do you know what? I'm going to have a look at this more seriously. And I think that's...
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've loved to, a lot of people are like, oh, I don't believe in that stuff. To me, I believe it based on firsthand experience. I'd love to learn more about it and get to more detail about it, because to me, it's an interesting concept of things I've experienced, things I've heard, things I've seen, but there's nobody, like, it's hard to find people to connect with that can help you channel it, like, unless you have certain resources, there's no way to channel what you've seen or what you've heard or hone on that skill. And like I've often said, like one of the guys that Paranormal Perspective follows, Corey on Paranormal, what's his thing called? That's who I met Stan through. And to me, if I was in Jersey, I would. Oh, Paranormal Postmortem. I would love to.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
That's who we linked up through. I would, if I was in New Jersey, I would so link up with them and be like, hey, listen, I want to get to know how this works more and more, and like understand, like investigate more and try to understand and hone in on what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing. Like when they do their sensory deprivation things, I'm like, I want to do that myself, but I don't have anybody here that knows about it. I don't know anybody that has done it before. Like they've done it, but to me, I'm like, I've never done it before. I'd love for, one of them to sit on the phone with me and, hey, Sky, let's do a sensory deprivation and just see what happens. I'd love to, I guess, dive into that experience and try and figure out what exactly is capable inside of me,
Yeah. I was in exactly the same situation as you years ago, because I kept having a few things, I call them like being tapped on the shoulder, essentially. It's something kind of nudging you, trying to get you to pay attention. But I was in an environment where, like, it's more because my religious situation, again, nothing against anybody of any religion anyway, it was just obviously where I was particularly, like, that they weren't open to these kind of experiences. So I wasn't sure, for one, who to speak to, because I was afraid if I said a single word about it, I'll be scorned forever for in all sorts of different ways.
Stone him! Stone him!
Yeah, but it's true. People like us used to be stoned and burnt at the stake a long time ago, and thankfully it doesn't happen now. But we still get social take down, essentially.
You get looked at sideways. They're like, "Huh? What'd you just say?
Yeah.
Ghost?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
EVP?
Yeah,
what does that stand
doing
for?
that, doesn't it? Though.
Yeah.
But no. But what I found was, like, through doing that, like, for one, I started to. was kind of more, interested in watching. Like we have a show over here called Most Haunted, and it's similar to what you watch, Scotty, actually, like where it's just a number of investigators investigating different properties, and in the end, I think it was more of a show thing rather than an actual investigation.
Yeah.
So I think they were making up a few things to make it seem more entertaining, though. But either way, it got my interest because I had actually experienced those things that I saw on the TV, literally there in my house, and I then began to realize that, okay, other people were experiencing these things. But I thought, okay, well, what more do I do about this, and how do I connect? And because I'm a person, I'm more of a inquisitive person myself. I went to a local circle. I didn't know that I was a medium then. I was just curious about it because I heard about it. And do you know what a circle is, Scotty?
Kind of like almost like not a seance, but kind of like a
it's similar to that, yeah. No, that's right. I mean, it might not be right for you anyway. I'm just saying what I did anyway. So obviously, like I say, it's up to you what you do though. But I was just curious, really, because I wanted to know more about people who have these experiences and see if I could maybe relate. So yeah, I went to the circle, and there are other people just like me, curious to see what's going on. And yeah, we did it for about 6-7 weeks, and yeah, we was there with this lady who was a fully fledged medium, and she took us through these different meditation techniques. Like it was really kind of relaxing, very chilled out. We just had a bit of a laugh before, and yeah, and we just followed this formula like step by step. And each and every meditation session we did, we got deeper and deeper into our kind of different state of consciousness. It's almost like a consciousness beyond our current consciousness. It's like a higher level of thinking kind of thing. And once I was trained myself enough to get to that state of mind, I began to realize, okay, what I was seeing, basically, I was then seeing it in those moments in a controlled environment rather than that happening randomly. And eventually I had my first psychometry experience. And it's basically the moment where I realized that I'm not imagining this anymore, because we did the thing. Do you know what psychometry is?
Never heard of that one before. That's a new term for me.
So it's basically, it's like an object. Say somebody gives you a cup and they don't tell you anything about it. They say that used to belong to somebody and I won't tell you anything more about that. Then you draw data from an object. It could be an object or a place. And so I thought it was a bit, I didn't believe in it then. Even though I was doing these meditation things, I thought psychometry seems a bit too far. I mean, how could you know anything about somebody just from an object? I practiced and practiced, and eventually I just thought, I'm just going to give it now. Nothing's really working. And then suddenly it happened. What they did was they gave me like an envelope, and everybody in the group like an envelope with an object inside, but they put padding on it around it as well, so you couldn't feel the object to identify it there. You could just hold it in your hand. And basically after about 5 minutes, I went blind in one eye, which, as far as I knew then, I wasn't blind anyway. I didn't just suddenly have a stroke or anything. I was a bit nervous, thinking, oh, why is this happening to me? Then I thought, no, I just trust it. And I kept seeing an image of this lady. It's like I was watching her sat in her like armchair, like a rocking chair, with a cup of tea with her cats, and it's almost like a happy moment of her sitting there watching her grandchildren. And I started to learn these different details about her. And in the end, I thought, okay, I'm just going to say this out loud. This seems a bit silly though, but this is my leap of faith. And I said it to the group. And I explained like the place that she was in, the room, the objects, and the fact that she had problems with her eye. And the man opposite to me said, "Yeah, that's my grandmother that I knew growing up, and she had cataracts, and then she lost sight in her left eye, which was the eye that I had an issue with then." And all the details that I said, I mean, again, I'm untrained. I didn't know what I was doing. I was saying what I saw. I identified the place, this town that she lived in, the street name, and the color. I think the color and the breed of the cat that she used to have, that was her favorite cat. That was always around her. I almost frightened myself. Like the man across me, like he was like crapping himself as well, thinking like that was his first experience of somebody like, because I was still technically a stranger then. I only knew him for a couple of weeks or so at that point, but that's when I knew that there's something going on here. And I was
it's almost
no longer,
like you started channeling, like you were channeling
basically
what that object meant to him, but it was you were the one holding the object,
What you're actually doing is you're reading the energy somehow that's inexplicable to me.
Well, this is the conduit. There is. It's not the object. It's what connects you to.
That's right. Yeah. It's the link, and that puts you into that place and allows those images to come through. And I love psychometry as a way of working. Actually, I haven't done it for a long time. And you can get so much. Things like rings that somebody's worn a lot, you get a lot of energy or a lot of stuff coming in off of that. Brilliant way of starting off that is to sit with something and see what you get off of it. We've had some interesting stuff, yeah.
My question for you guys. Okay, so I did this years ago, and I don't know what exactly it's called, but I was able to, and I only did it like 2 or 3 times, but it was kind of neat. I was able to walk into a room, and I did a total 360, like maybe 2, 3 times, walk out of the room, and then walk back in the room with the lights off and be able to tell what object where it was. I don't know what it's called. I was able to do it when I was younger. I did it a few times in my own bedroom, but as an adult, I've done it a few times. But I've tried to do it recently, but like I automatically know what it was. Like to me, I feel like it's some kind of ability to where I can be like, okay, scan the room, 360, turn the lights off. Like walk out the room, they turn the lights off. They remove an object from the room, or they send me into the room like, all right, where's this at? And I don't know what exactly that.
That's psychic, and that's something I've done with my circle. So I will say to them, right, guys, I've been doing such and such today, looking at something. Which object is it? And they can pick it up, and that's a psychic thing. So you've gone into the room, you've seen it. They've taken an object or they've moved an object. You're picking up their psychic thoughts. You're picking, because they've actually gone and taken that and put it somewhere else or whatever. You're picking up off of them. It's the person that's removed that thing or changed it. They will have knowledge of it. So you're tuning into their psyche. And if it's a friend, it should work, because if you've got a psychic connection with somebody, it's usually people that are really close, like mother, daughter, father, son, best friends, husband, wives, that close kind of relationship. And you'll be picking it up off of them. And we have one girl in our circle, she gets it right every time, but we're very close friends. So what she's doing is picking it out of my head. She's not picking it out of the room. It's your psychic ability that you're using. That's all that is.
It does seem like, yeah.
Where I did it a bunch when I was a teenager, and people were like, oh, that's crazy, that's weird. And I never thought anything of it. I'm just kind of like, I don't know how I do it, but I was just able to do it, And a couple of my friends were like, how did you know I moved it just even a millimeter? They're like, how did you know I moved that? I'm like, I don't know. I just, in my head, and I'm also prior military. So like I was in the military for 2 years, and I think that kind of heightened it, because when I was in my 20s, I did it a few times, and that kind of, it felt more advanced, like an advanced level. Like, hey, I just really just did that,
So
or I'd be like,
sorry to interrupt. Did you get pictures in your head of it being moved, or what was moved? Or tell me how it felt tell me how you feel when you go back in that room. Are you pulled towards it, or what makes you choose that thing and say it was that, or it was whatever?
It's almost like visually I'll see the word of what the object is in front of me.
That's
so like,
okay, that seems like it. Yeah,
that's it.
There you go,
if I walked in the room and somebody moved a lamp, I'll see in front of me blue lamp, and the blue lamp might have been moved a millimeter.
That's your psychic ability that's picking that up. The fact that you're getting words come up, lots of people, when they're developing the psychic ability, will just get words come up with stuff like that. So I'd say all day long, that's your psychic ability kicking in. Yeah. You have potential.
Sorry if my phone interrupted. It was telling me I have low battery.
Oh, that's all right. Okay. Well, I think we're towards the end of this call anyway. So I think we're going late into the night over here, and don't want to take too much of your time, Scotty, though. But no, thank you for being here. Like, it means the world that you're here to kind of share your story, and we just love to hear other people's experiences, really. And it does seem like you have like a natural kind of psychic ability, or abilities of some sort. And I hope kind of having this conversation might inspire you to maybe like continue learning. And, you know, I'm really happy that our account kind of connected you to another person. And of course, you know, there are people out there that are, you know, not particularly that don't particularly have good intent when it comes to kind of the psychic world anyway. But your instinct will guide you in the right direction as to who to speak to. But never be afraid to pursue knowledge. Really, like knowledge will only empowers you, it enlightens you. And as it did myself, really, like it took me a long time to accept it though. So don't be as reluctant as I was anyway. Life's too short.
I would say, you know, if you want to hook up sometimes, Scotty, and chat more about it, you know, offer
for sure
details over, yeah.
Or if you've got any questions, contact us, and if we can help you anyway, that would be good. And that goes for anybody else. If you've got some interesting stories, or you think you might be a medium, or want to come along and chat, but yeah, keep in touch, Scotty, because it does seem to me you've got some psychic ability there.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, I feel like I want to do like a Ghostbusters, you know, we're ready to believe you kind of thing. But,
right.
Awesome. No. Okay. Well, thank you both for being here tonight. Scotty, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and, you know, long may you continue your treks and walking as well, because it's really good for you to look after the body. It's good to be healthy.
Absolutely.
In Albuquerque. So yeah. Yeah. Hey guys, stay tuned. We have a lot more stories on the way, and yeah, Scotty, I'll pass over those details for you and help you on your journey, whichever way you choose to go. But yeah, you take care.
Sounds
nice
good.
to meet you.
All right.
Thanks
have a good one, guys.
Ciao.
Bye.
Bye.